Welcome to Ciminelli Chats, where we aim to share the latest news, real estate industry insights, and announcements. I'm your host, Grace Harner, and I'm here with Kyle Ciminelli, president of Ciminelli Real Estate Corporation. Today, we're breaking down our most recent blog, The State of Commercial Real Estate in 2025, Top Trends and Predictions, which is packed with the most up-to-date and notable trends. Be sure to check it out in the show notes after this episode if you haven't already. Kyle, thank you for joining us again.
Great to be here, Grace. I'm really excited for 2025.
Same here. So let's jump right into the topics in this blog. First off, AI in real estate is really the biggest topic right now, honestly, in all industries, but specifically in real estate. What are you seeing, and also what is your experience with AI? Just maybe using it personally or professionally.
Sure. It obviously, as you mentioned, a good question for really any industry right now, but we'll start with how it's really impacting real estate. I will say industry-specific AI software is still evolving, but evolving quickly. And what's really great about Ciminelli is we have a full corporate service and IT team that's probably sitting on a different demo, either weekly or bi-weekly basis, specific to our industry from certain companies out there, startups and whatnot, that are in the AI world. And whether that's around building systems, whether that's around optimizing, floor plan usage. There's just so many different ways that we're looking at AI within real estate right now. Probably the one thing that we've grasped and used in 2024 and into 25 is a company called Cubic. This is a group that we've actually signed up with at Ciminelli. What they do is Cubic is an AI-driven software group that is able to create test fits within minutes. Now, what is a test fit? A test fit is an example layout of how a company could fit within a certain space. So it can be used in two ways. We use them for marketing of our spaces, so showing, let's say, for instance, how a law firm could fit in Fountain Plaza. Or it could be specific to a tenant's needs. Typically, developing these test fits would take time with an architect to walk through, likely a separate contract, probably a 2 to 3 week process in dealing with an architect. With Cubic, you're literally inputting these the program details, and it's spit out within minutes. Now, you do have to go through a revision, but you're talking about cutting a 2 to 3 week process down to a 2 to 3 day process. And it's been really impactful for our brokerage team and for really marketing our entire portfolio within Western New York. So we're really excited about Cubic, and we're really excited there's gonna be a lot of other groups like that really help us become more efficient with our time. Pushing to really how I would say AI has impacted my day and the day of a real estate professional. What I'm really excited about, what's pretty cool, is how efficient we've become. And I've always harped with the brokerage group and others, like the biggest thing in our industry is efficiently using your time. Time is money, and the more free time that we can free up, the more time we can be out there doing business development. And a few ways that I use AI that has really been impactful with freeing up time is, I would say, first, I'll use an example of last week. I put aside an hour and a half to draft a response term sheet for a fairly significant transaction that we're working on in downtown Buffalo. Typically, it would take me an hour and a half without AI. With AI, I was done within 15 to 20 minutes. It helped me put together extremely difficult language that would normally take me 15, 20 minutes to create a section. It took me 5 minutes. So stuff like that, drafting proposals, responding to RFPs, significantly easier coming up with that language and responses utilizing AI. Simply going to Microsoft Copilot, I'm saying, we are represented this type of tenant, we are responding in this way. I need a use clause that identifies this. It'll give me 90% what I need. And then I literally have to finish it off.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really cool in that way. So again, an hour and a half process took me 15 minutes. I freed up an hour and 15 minutes of my day. Similarly, as we're abstracting leases, oftentimes we have to go through 50 to 70 page leases, abstracting the important information for our clients. AI will do that in 5 minutes. Will it get you 100% where you need to be? No, but it will get you 90% where you need to be within 5 minutes. So then you spend the next 15 to 20 finalizing. And really excited about what's coming out with AI specific to the real estate industry with examples like Cubic that we're already using. But for the last year and moving forward, AI has really helped the real estate entrepreneur free up their time and become more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. As marketers, I think we can definitely also attest to that.
Oh,
we
absolutely.
use it almost every day.
I can tell when you guys spit out some nice blogs in AI and that they, with your own little flavor on it. So I know you're using it as much as I am.
But yeah, it is really interesting to see how we can anticipate that adoption of AI, specifically in Western New York. So you also mentioned public-private partnerships. Could you expand on that piece a little more for me?
Absolutely. There's a lot of different examples of public-private partnerships throughout the years. I think with where Buffalo sits in today's world and our current economy and so forth, and some of the trends that we're seeing in conversions and so forth, and I'll get into more detail on that, 2025 is going to be a very big year for public-private partnerships, not only in Buffalo, but throughout the country. And you're seeing this already in a lot of our sister and tertiary cities. So let me give one example of what a public-private partnership would look like that's coming out of sort of what one of the real estate trends that we're going to talk about later as well. As many people that follow the real estate industry know, downtowns have been hurting post-pandemic because a lot of older, antiquated office space is not being repopulated and it's sitting vacant. So the smart communities and the smart cities are going out there and finding ways to convert these office buildings to different uses, primarily residential, but oftentimes mixed use. These are very, very costly endeavors. To convert an office building to a residential sometimes cost millions and millions of dollars, and the revenue generated from it will not justify that spend. So what is the choice? We can either sit there with a Class B, C office building that is going to take many, many years to fill up with office tenants, or we can go convert these buildings to residential, giving them 24/7 life instead of what you're seeing in the office space, which is really 3 to 5 day life. 5 days, not as much, but 24/7 life that's coming down to downtowns, bringing vibrancy and keeping retail alive and bringing that density down in more of a 24/7 fashion, which is desperately needed given where the workforce is gone and where the office market's gone. But where I'm going with all this is to make that happen, you almost always need a public-private partnership. Even in markets like New York City. And in New York City right now, there is a large chunk of money in the state budget to allow for, I think, up to 8 to 10 current skyscrapers are being converted to residential from office in New York, all through public incentive. So that is a great example of public-private partnerships. We've yet to see them in Buffalo, but the work is being done, and we believe we should hopefully be in a position to have a similar program in Buffalo, New York in 2025 and 26.
Is there specifically a project that you're working on that would require public help in downtown Buffalo?
We are working with bringing a USL soccer franchise to downtown Buffalo. And the need for that will be a 10 to 15,000 seat stadium. This is an economic driver for any city, yet alone Buffalo. But because this is such an economic driver for downtown and would bring 80 to 85 days and nights of events and populate the city more on 80, 85 nights a year, it's hugely important. It will result in significantly more economic development, i.e. hotels popping up, other bars and restaurants popping up. That would justify public money from the state, the Fed, and so forth to get this project off the ground. So that's another really cool example of how we're working both with the private and public community to try and bring a very, very cool economic development project to downtown Buffalo. I have a very cool public-private partnership that's also going to sort of flow into the next trend that we're seeing here is Renaissance Commerce Park. Now, what is Renaissance Commerce Park? Renaissance Commerce Park is the old Bethlehem Steel site. Obviously, anyone from Buffalo knows that when Bethlehem Steel went out of business many years ago, it left us with a lot of dirty land. But what the county and the state have been doing over the last handful of years is RFPing out this land to certain developers, again, in a public-private partnership type of way, to then market this land to national industrial users. So it's a really good collaboration between the private community and the public community in putting forth land to the world that has been vacant and unused in Buffalo for quite some time. And it really flows into another trend that we're seeing, and we saw in 2019, 2018, and really leading up to COVID, but seeing really come back is the industrial resurgence. Leading up to the pandemic, industrial was one of the hottest product types in real estate. Obvious reasons why is that retail isn't what it used to be. People are now having everything delivered to their door via Amazon, whatever it may be. So warehousing and industrial has just become so much more of a need across the country. Up to 2020, we were building, or in most communities, we're building at the rate of demand. So we were providing the supply to meet the demand. What unfortunately happened was there were so many projects underway leading up to the pandemic, obviously then chopped that demand in half or even in 75%. And we were all of a sudden stuck with this industrial product that had to get finished, but then no longer had the users to fill these buildings. What we've seen happen since then is we've now caught up. There is now the spec buildings, the land that got developed, it now has gotten filled over the last couple of years, and there's now a demand for more. Buffalo Niagara is the 10th largest U.S. exporter in 2023, bringing over $47 billion. That's a stat I got from you, Grace. That's very impactful.
Yeah, agreed. And there's definitely a need for that, especially near the Canadian border.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen a lot of reshoring with what's gone on in the world. And that, really reshoring has helped boost this industrial demand. Domestic manufacturing efforts are going to really drive in logistics and production facilities, and it's going to be a huge trend that you're going to see over the next 12 to 18 months. You're probably going to see a lot of spec product starting to being built again. You really haven't seen much spec industrial product built over the last few years because the fundamentals haven't supported it. But things are changing, the fundamentals are getting bigger, the demand's there, you're going to start seeing it, and industrial is again going to become one of the hottest asset classes within real estate.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What I'm even more excited about is that nearshoring is going to reshape border markets, especially with what's going on in the current political climate. So Mexico and U.S. border cities are going to see a significantly increased industrial and infrastructure investment. We're getting a lot of interest from Canadian companies, and it's initial interest, and we don't know where it's going to lead yet, but the signs are pointing in the right direction that we're going to start getting, and hopefully start getting, more Canadian industrial business than we've seen in a long time. So I'm really, really excited to where Buffalo sits within this industrial resurgence.
Yeah, no doubt. Office space is also evolving so much, and you talk a little bit about amplifying those in-office benefits, which arguably is my favorite piece of real estate in general. Just adding those amenities and making it extremely attractive for these companies.
Yeah, so we're sort of shifting to the office sector trend that we're going to see in 2025, and you saw a lot of this in the end of 2024. There is a tale between two different types of products within the country right now. The Class A amenitized product is doing very well. The buildings that have put money into their common areas, the buildings that are using the amenities that are attracting the forward-thinking companies, depending on the city, you're looking from anywhere from 8 to 12% vacancy. The Class B, more commodity office space is dying. I think of Buffalo. I think we're in the mid-20s in terms of vacancy rate for that type of product. There's been a real shift to the flight to quality. The main driver of it being that companies, especially the forward-thinking companies that are really in high growth mode, want to be able to get people back into the office. And you did a prior podcast on this, and I know Zoe, mentioned the line of, we've been really motivated as developers and landlords to try and bring things to the office building that you would have at your home. And that's been a big focus for us over the last couple of years, both in Fountain Plaza and our suburban office parks in Lafayette Court, making sure that we have the right health and wellness offerings. And Grace, you've been a huge part of that. But the landlords that are able to do that, no matter the rent, are doing very well. The landlords who are literally just trying to cut rents, get people in cheap, not put any money into their buildings, but be the low-cost provider, it doesn't matter. The types of tenants that would be going to those buildings are staying at home. So those types of buildings just aren't doing very well at all. So that flight to quality, we're going to continue to see, over the next year. What's interesting, I was in New York a couple weeks ago. The top halves of Class A buildings in New York are almost 100% full. So think of the amount of buildings in New York City, Class A buildings, will say that the upper floors, really the top 50% of these buildings, there's no vacancy whatsoever. It's unbelievable. But the bases of these buildings and other Class B product, there's a lot of them that are essentially almost empty in a way. 75% of all relocations in New York City last year were into Class A plus buildings. Really, I mean, it's an unbelievable trend that I have never seen in my entire career, and how the companies are willing to go into the best buildings and pay for the best amenities and so forth. So that's a trend that we're going to continue to see. I'm excited about, because we're really good at that at Ciminelli, and I think we may have most of those offerings in the wide variety of our office buildings, and they're doing well, and they're going to continue to do better. But I think, one other trend that we want to talk about, which sort of stems from those buildings that aren't doing very well, and I touched on it earlier, is the conversion to other uses, whether that's residential, hotel, mixed use. The most popular thing you're seeing across the country is residential, and the reasons I mentioned earlier. These downtowns are dying in a way. I think of a building that we're currently working on potentially converting to residential in downtown Buffalo. The building is 80% vacant, and with how absorption happens in Buffalo, and what absorption is how office space gets leased in Buffalo, New York, it would probably take 5 to 10 years for that building to fill with actual office tenants. So instead of waiting that 5 to 10 years, we can go forth and try to put a considerable amount of money and fill it with residents that are going to provide, full 24/7 life to the city.
Yeah, you got to fill it with someone. What other trends are you seeing in terms of the market right now, or maybe for the foreseeable future?
I think there's certain areas that are doing very well, and certain areas that are still struggling. What's exciting for us is you're going to see a return of investment sales. There's been a lot of dry powder on the side, really in the private and public markets for the last 2 years, and as interest rates become to stabilize a little bit, as the fundamentals in the real estate industry start to get a little bit better, you're starting to see transactions actually happen again. Buildings being sold, buildings being bought. There's a little bit of a disconnect in values, which always happens when you come out of this sort of stagnant period or a downturn. Buyers think things are worth something, sellers think it's worth another, which you're finding now, which is probably why you're not seeing a ton of velocity. But that will flatten out over time, and we're really excited. At least towards the end of this year, we'll really be able to sell our high-performing assets and churn that capital into buying new. And that's when we really do our best work. When we can fill buildings and create the value for our investors, sell them at a higher value, and then put that money back in and start rinse and repeat. That's something we haven't been able to do in 2 to 3 years. And we're excited to find more JV partners that have been sitting on that dry powder to go after assets with us, whether that's in Massachusetts, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, or Florida. So it's an area within our development group and with our investment capital group that we're excited about, because it's been a little sleepy in those areas for the past 18, 24 months.
Yeah, but what you're saying is really promising, so it's nice to hear that optimism.
And healthcare has still been extremely strong throughout Western New York and the country, and we're excited about what 2026 looks for healthcare. We're excited to see the office market come back a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, obviously still has a ways to go, but with how hybrid policies are shifting more to 3 to 4 days a week instead of 2 to 3, the downsizing of tenants is not happening as often. If you have your employees coming in 3 to 4 days a week, you're likely still going to need around the same square footage as 5 days a week. So that's promising for the real estate market, because the most alarming thing that happened with COVID is that 50% of the leases that were signed before COVID are still going on. So what does that mean? If we were still 2 years ago, if those leases were to be renewed, they'd probably be renewed at 50% of the occupancy, because 2-3 years ago, people were coming in 2-3 days a week, and that lowered the occupancy. Now, the way the pendulum's swinging, these renewals aren't going to have such a negative impact on buildings that we originally projected. So it's unfortunately, I know there's a lot of people within your generation that would like to work home more than is being allowed, but for the real estate industry, it's really, I think it's providing the right mix.
Yeah. No, there's a lot that keeps us in the office.
Well, your amenities that you provide for us and your programming, Grace, keeps us in the office.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So we're very optimistic. We're going to stay forward thinking, and we're really excited for these 2025 trends to present for our clients and even our community.
Great. Well, this was fun. I could go on this for hours. So it's been a really interesting couple of years leading up till now, and it was a decent end of last year, but we're really excited for what 25 is going to bring.
For sure. Well, thanks so much for being here, Kyle.
Great to be here, Grace.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to check out our newest blog in our show notes.